Hi, everyone. This is Solath Rowan, one of the pilots for Kazon Coalition. Welcome to Making ISK in Null Sec. It's a course for Kazon Academy number 1005. So before I begin and actually dive into the four areas, quickly start by saying that this is a quick introduction to four core areas to making ISK while in null sec or null security space. So while I will go into some details in some areas to provide context, we're not going to go into every single nuance that exists within all of these aspects. Those will either follow up in supplemental courses, or I will leave time for questions in between each of these four sections so that you have time to talk through them. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is ratting, and that is the name given to running either what are called combat anomaly sites or traveling from asteroid belt to asteroid belt and killing whichever rats or NPC red characters that show up with ships that show up in each space. Um, One quick thing to note about ratting, oftentimes ratting ships will have different fits and will pay a little bit more attention, and it's easier to understand what NPC weaknesses and strengths will be. So for context, in the space that we are in, we fight drones, which means they are weakest against EMP damage and also do the largest spread of damage types when you're thinking about doing your own damage resists. I wanted to quickly talk about the fit window, because this is where you can start to build ships and see ships that we as a corporation feel are important. So in order, if you haven't set up your sort of your left-hand window yet, how you get to the actual fitting site is you go to your Neocom menu, which is in the top left of your screen. You're going to hit ship, then fitting. If you want to add it as a shortcut, you're going to go ahead and right click on fitting and hit add shortcut. And that way, moving forward, you don't actually go through the Neocom menu. You can go straight to it on your left-hand quick bar. One of the things that, as part of a corporation, you have access to are corporation fits, and you'll hear fleet commanders or fleet folks talk about a lot of different types of fits. We have specific routing fits that you can look at and pay attention to and build towards. And you can find those in the fits section by typing in routing under the search and selecting that star with the two, I always call those hands on either side. That's going to show you all of the different fits for the corporation and what we use. Um, this is a detailed fit or look into a fit. It's going to show you exactly what the fit entails in terms of how to build your ship. And if you look at the bottom right hand side, you're going to see something that says 8.3 M or 8.3 million ISK. So this fit actually is pretty easy to buy. Um, and when you're thinking about being within null security space, instead of having to go all the way back up to high security and finding a fit and trying to put it onto a ship and getting it all the way back out here, the market that we have within our alliance, within our corporation in ITAC-C, which is our location right now, will allow you to purchase these fits. The little sort of box next to the right hand side of that 8.3 million is the multi-buy feature, which allows you to actually buy the entire fit at the same time from the market. So how do you actually figure out where you're going? So there's when you're talking about running sites and you're talking about running combat anomaly sites, the way you get to that is your probe scanner. You'll see that in the middle bottom when you're looking in game in sort of your your centralized area on the bottom. You'll hit the scanner button and then you'll hit probe scanner. It's going to open up that screen that shows up on the right hand side. And we're focused on the green sort of downward arrows, I like to say. Those are your combat sites. So that's how you actually figure out. You can go ahead and right click on those, and that will allow you to warp to that site. When you are running intro, so the drone menagerie is the easiest site when you're in our location. There's 5 to 6 waves within that location. You focus from smaller ships to larger ships. You will kill turrets first, so those are the first things that you'll take off the grid. And remember your EM ammo. Remember how drones are they're weakest against EMP ammo if you're in a ship that runs that. The second possible site you can take a look at is drone surveillance. It's the second easiest site. There's two possible options. It's a little bit heavier in the sense that it has 7 waves. And while the first one doesn't have warp scramble, which keeps you from warping off site, this site does, which means elite frigates will always be your first target when you're thinking about um, each wave. The last thing I want to mention is when you are engaged in ratting, we are in Null Sec. If you ever feel like it's been very active with neutrals going in and out of system, or if you're newer to a site, one of the most important things to remember is to align. So aligning itself means you right click on a cosmic body, a structure that you have access to, an asteroid belt, it doesn't matter, but allows you to actually aim your ship at that location. If you are actively aligning to that and you hit warp, it will warp you immediately out of danger. As you think about it from engaging in a site, the other thing that might come to pass is you might notice that the tank or your ship's ability to take the damage of whatever site you are running is what's called braking. Um, you may decide that you want to align and warp out. You can always go back to those sites after you've engaged them. You always want to remember to bookmark a site if you are engaging in it and have the potential to warp out. All right, so you notice from the next screen that I already put up is we're taking a quick look at exploration for Relic and DataSites. So I wanted to pause for a second here to see if any questions have come up when it comes to looking at ratting in nullsec or null security.
I got one actually.
Go ahead.
Do you have to have the combat probe launcher and all the combat probes launched to see that probe screen?
Not. No, the probe screen is something that you can look at without needing probe scanners attached to your ship.
Huh.
The scanners are for cosmic anomalies,
which we're about to go into. So I'm going to use that as a segue to go into Relic and DataSites. So the ships that you see here are the frigates from each faction that go along with that. But we're going to talk a little bit about Relic and DataSites as a way to make ISK because it's part of the functionality of Eve. That was a stupid sentence. So first of all, thinking about skills. So, in the ratting sense, skills are going to be related to the ship that you're going into. But in Relic and DataSites and the subsequent areas that we talk about, you're going to need to start taking a look at skills because skills are going to increase the ability of your ships, the strength of your scans, or the strength of anything that your ship is going to be doing. So these are the basic skills that you're looking at. The only one that's really going to cause any issues for anybody who might be not playing Omega is astrometric pinpointing. It is not a requirement to be an effective scanner. So the first thing I want to talk about is the ship fit itself. We're talking about the high slot. You'll notice that there's only a core probe scanner attached to the ship. You do not need guns. This is a grab and go kind of a probe or equivalent. This is the probe. It's a Minmatar ship or equivalent will often have spaces for drones. If you would like to have those, you can certainly add those to your ship fit, but it's not a requirement to scan. Just a quick clarification as well, you need core probe scanners in order to do this. Combat scanners can still do this, but they're less effective when it comes to scanning down cosmic sites. The medium slots were on the right-hand side. You're going to notice you need a data and relic analyzer. And then you're also going to want a scan range finding array. The scan range finding array will increase the strength of your probe scanner, making it possible to scan down higher level cosmic sites. So the stronger your scanning ability, the more likely you are to be able to access all of the sites in Null Sec. Going back to rigs for a second, we're going to add one rig for small mimetic algorithm bank and small emission scope sharpener. These will increase the efficiency of your medium slot data analyzer and relic analyzer. So again, we're pushing the strength of your ship. Because we're in null security, to be safe, add some warp core stabilizers down at the bottom. These will not get you out of trouble if you get stuck in a bubble, but they will keep you from being tackled by an independent ship if they find you on scan and you are not fast enough to warp off before they land on you. The other thing, this whole fit is actually also available. Remember how we talked about where to find quick look at fits? It's the Tech One Exploration, and there is a version of every ship for each faction there. So you can take a look at any ships that you have access to, because you remember from the previous slide about having your racial frigate skill. That is what's required to run these lesser ships. I'm not showing it in this presentation because it's something to work towards, but if you are hoping to focus and start to get a sense of scanning Relic and DataSites and you really enjoy it, then you do want to take a look ultimately at the Sisters of Eve ships, specifically the Astero and the Stratios. These ships specifically have specializations in scanning and can be integral to scanning down the hardest sites. So back to nobody's question in terms of thinking about how do you access all of this. In the case of a cosmic site, when we're looking at our probe scanner, we're no longer interested in the green combat downward arrows. We're interested in the red X's. The red X's means that they have not been scanned down. And if you look on the right-hand side, you'll see signal. At that point, there's no ability to warp, and we're currently at 0% signal for all of these. All right. So you're looking at all of this. To launch your probes, you're going to want to look at the bottom left of the probe window and you will see 3 buttons. The one that is, in my opinion, the most useful is the launch pinpoint formation. This will launch your probes into space right next to you, and you will notice on the right half 8 intersecting circles which show up sort of in the greenish blue, depending on how you see. Now you want to focus on one cosmic site. So if you double click on one of the red signatures that you want to scan, it's actually going to center your camera right on that red, which means you can then select, so click and hold the 3-dimensional square and drag it to the X. You're going to want to center your sort of spread of probes on this, and one of the easiest ways to do that is to use your top view and side view. If you hit top view, which is the left of the 2 buttons, it's going to center you right on top of that red, of whatever you've selected, which in this case is the red X. If you then hit side view, it's going to do a 90-degree sort of turn within space and give you the side view, which will allow you to then align and make it so that your spread of probes and that square is directly on top of that red X. I always start with an 8 AU spread for the probe spread. As you start getting stronger and stronger probes, you may decide you want to go with 4, but each X will have a large red circle that shows where the cosmic anomaly signature can live in. And so generally speaking, those red circles are going to be larger than 4 AU, which is the next size down. So 8 AU can at least give you a great start. All right, so we've scanned it a little bit. You notice that we've scanned once. The left-hand side, it's not centered, but it was actually pretty close. So we're going to do what we do and sort of go through an iterative process of going and sort of taking this square and moving it back onto the red dot. And we're doing it over and over again. Ultimately speaking, once you start to get closer, it'll change from an X, then it'll go to a circle, then it's going to go to the actual site itself. In this case, I'm scanning down a combat site, but you're going to be able to find a combat site, wormholes, data sites, and relic sites when it goes along with this. If you notice on the right-hand side, as we get down to the signal strength, we have noticed that the radiance has actually become 100% scanned down, which means you can now warp to it, and it is now a site that you can go to. I would not recommend visiting a combat site in a probe scanner ship, as it is not combat capable. All right, so now we get into kind of what people have described to me as a way of thinking about Minesweeper, which is the game itself. So when you get into a site, you're going to see these sort of possibilities in your up right-hand corner, it's going to look like data or relics. You're going to actually target those very much like you would be targeting a red ship. Once you target those, you need to be within 5,000 kilometers to use your basic data analysis piece. Once that happens, it's going to open a mini game, this Minesweeper game. And the goal of it is for you to get from where you started all the way to the system core. Now, just like Minesweeper, there are things in the way that can make this harder. In this case, there's also things that make it easier. So the best thing that I would recommend when you're thinking about this game, if you're interested in doing this type of work in Null Sec, is to do it and try out the game, because it's going to give you some pointers and some ways to sort of, not pointers, but getting used to sort of the UI is kind of the way that I learned how to do this game. And there are benefits to doing that. The skills that we talked about a little bit earlier as well are going to strengthen your ability to do this. It's going to make that easier to do because you will have a stronger hacking score, so to speak, that will make each time you want to take down a bad effect within this game a little bit easier. One thing to note, if you fail the hack the first time, you will most likely have another time to try, but after failing usually twice, the node will most likely blow up. You may also find that some small friends might show up to hassle you. So in that case, drones in your drone bay might be beneficial. If you're nearby, you could also ask a friend in the corporation to help you out to deal with those. Once you have done a successful hack, it opens the Relic or DataSite, but it does not automatically loot for you. So do not forget to click on the node itself and loot the cargo. All right, I'm going to pause here to see if I miss anything or if any questions have come up. All right, I'll keep going. We can always also talk about questions at the end. So the next sort of section is mining, but I'm also going to put manufacturing in your head for a second, because mining and manufacturing go hand in hand, especially when we're thinking about Null Sec. So the good news is mining is a little bit more straightforward than some of these other places. You jump into a mining ship, make sure that you have the right mining fit, and you go to an asteroid belt and you mine. When you're thinking about it from an alpha or omega perspective, you want to think about it in the sense that ratting or data and relic sites are a little bit more alpha friendly, just to be very honest. Mining, you can absolutely always mine in a venture. You can always get in on mining fleets and be that helpful little sort of ship moving around. But when you're thinking about sort of that advanced mining history techniques, and as we'll talk about in a minute, you'll notice that a little bit more of the omega comes through in some of the skills. The skills that you see here, though, are still going to be helpful, and you can still mine as part of it. Thinking about nullsec, the same thing also sort of applies in terms of safety. When you jump online, you can always ask incorporation. If someone's already mining, join their fleet, make sure that you're always paying attention. Miner ships often are not equipped, especially at the smaller level, to deal with an incursion of some kind, something larger, especially a venture, which only can hold 2 drones. But you want to think about it from the perspective of just sort of going in and out. You can always warp out, you can warp back in. Our corporation also does a nice job of posting. Some of our folks who like to go out in larger mining ships will post when they're going out, and you can jump on and be that person. I also want to, in nullsec, sort of specifically, the quality of the belts is based on the industry index and whatever upgrades have been placed in the iHub. So any mining that we do also benefits us in the sense that it also benefits the system that we're in. But these are the sort of the starting skills. The ships sort of go from the venture, which is a starting ship. You'll start to hear about mining barges, and then you'll start hearing about larger industrial ships, such as the Porpoise and the Orca. All right, I'm going to shift, and actually I'll ask for questions after we go through mining and manufacturing because I think they go kind of hand in hand together. Um, so industry is a huge overarching umbrella within Eve itself, and manufacturing is sort of diving in a little bit to thinking about the production of ammunition, ships, modules, and components. Um, and this is completed by having both the blueprint of the item you wish to create and the required materials to build them. You also need access to a station that has industry active in order to be able to build. So first things first, the industry window overview. So for this explanation, I'm just going to use the Atron blueprint. The top part of the overview will show you the materials needed for the blueprint, how long the production time is, or job duration is what it says on the screen itself, and the cost of the job. Mousing over anything, if you see in the top right-hand side of the projection, for example, the job duration will show you any bonuses or additional details that might be prevalent to each sort of set of details. Um, in this case, this is showing us that the duration is being altered by 3 different areas or factors: the efficiency of the blueprint, skills or implants that I personally have active, and finally the structure itself that you're producing in. Um, the blueprint facility and run tab details. The blueprint tab will show you your available blueprints. Facilities will show you which industry facilities are nearby and which industry abilities are available. So, for example, with the Atron Fit, there are 2 skills that need to be, or 2 activities that need to be active in order for us to use this blueprint. Also, if you dive into a little bit more detail with each of these tabs have filters that you can adjust to make what you are searching for easier. So instead of looking just in current station, for example, you can look at surrounding locations. So a couple of different details when thinking about blueprints. So there are 2 different blueprint styles within Eve. One is called a blueprint original, and the other one is called a blueprint copy. Um, Blueprint originals can be run an infinite amount of times, and blueprint copies will have specific number of runs before they are consumed. The other thing to consider is, for the point of thinking about this introduction, is you'll hear Tech 1, Tech 2, and Tech 3. Tech 1 blueprints are usually the easiest to find and the easiest to make. They are Tech 1 blueprint originals are available throughout the market, throughout the galaxy, and can range in price from hundreds of thousands to billions of ISK. And we're going to stop there in terms of that piece. And then the final element that we talk about is material and time efficiency. So you remember on the previous, and I'm going to go back, you notice the Atron blueprint has a 10% and a 20% on this screen. That has to do with the blueprint itself. It means that it has been, it goes through a process called research and invention, and that is something that you'll see in a more advanced section. But what this allows people who do this type of work to do is to create a more efficient blueprint. So material efficiency is exactly what it sounds like. It allows you to create this blueprint for 10% less materials, not blueprint, the actual item. So the Atron is 10% reduced materials. And then the timing also has to do with the amount of time for the job. All right. So this is what I would say the most Omega heavy in terms of if you want to really dive into this skill set, but you can, again, always do industry. It just depends on some of the skills that you need in order to go into this. These beginner skills will get you situated with shorter production times, the ability to run additional jobs at the same time, and also the supply chain management, which allows you to actually start jobs from farther away from the station that you're in. I do bring up advanced ship construction even in the intro, because if you're truly interested in really putting a lot of effort into industry, advanced ship construction, um, it allows you to specialize your production. So each ship size, say that 10 times fast, will have a specialized construction skill. So things around small, medium, large capital ships, those types of things, it'll allow you to make them more efficiently and more quickly. and it'll allow you to actually have access to those more advanced blueprints. And so that is something that I put on here because it is something that you definitely want to consider if industry is really where you're thinking about it. So thinking about mining and manufacturing together, um, this is really where they work hand in hand. Mining and manufacturing, um, obviously, you need the blueprint, but you also need the items. And especially with Tech 1 blueprints, oftentimes the most um, needed resource to build those blueprints is something around ore. Um, when you're thinking about null security, right, in this space, JITA's a long way away, or large high sec hubs in terms of selling your wares are a long way away. We are next to a couple of hubs, Fraternity. We have a hub within our mess you can take a look at. But if you're considering looking at production as something that you want to do to make ISK within NullSec, the best thing to do is actually to go to that market and see what's in demand, or take a pulse of your corporation members to ask if they have any insight or seen some things that are maybe needed but no one's producing them. And it allows you to get into that market and actually start to produce those things, and they'll sell. Um, I'll ugh. Obviously, since we're in NullSec, it's a little bit harder to get blueprints. Um, so you can purchase blueprint copies, or if you're feeling a little bit daring, the blueprint originals from contracts and import them into the system. You can use our jump freighter from JITA if that's the case. Um, the other thing to remember is that if you're buying a blueprint copy or blueprint original from contracts, to take a look at the time and material efficiency to see if you're paying for what you're actually getting. The other thing that you can ask for is if we have any blueprint copies available in corporation to purchase, so that you can just continue to make them. The other aspect of being part of a larger corporation is that when you are focused on industry, just like in any other sort of assistance within the corporation, you may at any time be asked to produce blueprint copies or blueprint originals, and you will be handed those materials to make them. So it's always good to keep an eye on requests made in Discord or within chat when you're online, because there may be a request to produce items. You may also be tapped or tasked by other sort of leadership within the corporation, if they know that you're interested in industry, to be able to approach that. All right, I'm going to pause here for a second to see if there are any mining and manufacturing questions. So now you have some materials from salvaging dead wrecks, or that you've mined, or maybe you've been producing ships, modules, or guns or whatever it is that you've been doing within. So now you have this stuff. What can you do with it? You can certainly take those to a market hub, or you can put that directly onto the corporation market for sale within system. But the other thing that you can use is our actual buyback program. The prices are set to 90% JITA. And for those of you who may not be familiar, JITA is the market capital, is considered like the market capital of EVE, to allow the corporation to make some money on whatever they are buying. But the benefit, I think this is the best benefit. The benefit of selling these items directly to the corporation is you get money for it, and you don't have to worry about actually moving the items around. That now has the responsibility is put on the corporation itself. We are always using ore and salvage, but there might be other requests. And generally speaking, the way that the corporation works is if you put it up there and it's something that we're looking for, we're going to take their contract. There's a full tutorial video that Crowder has put together that actually through the entire way to put in um, a buyback contract to the corporation. And so I would say definitely take a look at that. Even as someone who's used it a couple of times, I actually constantly refer back to that video as I'm setting them up to make sure that I'm actually doing it correctly. And so that's one of the ways, like if you're producing or if you're using ore or anything like that, instead of having to actually lug this stuff all the way to either fraternity space or back to JITA or any number of different areas, you have a way to sell it either back to the corporation or use the market in order to make your ISK. The final thing I just really want to quickly go over, and then we'll leave time and we'll pause for all questions, is the 1 million skill point referral program. So, and here's why we bring this up. So, first of all, what this is this is a referral program that allows you to create a new account with 1 million skill points sort of injected within to that. Any Omega account can create a skill link and send that to anyone. But so let's say that you have your first account and you've built it around a certain set of skills. So, for example, let's say that your account is Omega and you've decided to make that your industry account. So, you've put a lot of time and effort into that, but you kind of also want to be able to run sites. You want to rat. Or another example is you want to maybe run a fit that you haven't been able to run before. This 1 million skill point would allow you that opportunity to create a second account or third account or fourth account. And it allows you to have those skill points to sort of inject within those skill sets. So as I mentioned, if you're an industry main, but you still want to have like a ratting character, this would allow you that flexibility to still work on your industry and on your main account while also having a secondary account for ratting or with any number of different reasons for utilizing those or specializing your skills. And like I said, I think Crowder has in the helpful links an actual direct link to one of those skill point systems. But as I also mentioned, any Omega corporation member can share one with you. And if you're Omega, you can share it with others too. All right. Thanks so much for taking the time to listen. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen now, and I'll see if there are any lingering questions.